Nana Akyaaba Addai-Sebo into the studio. Nana.
Yes.
Oh God. How is the vibe like? How are you doing?
I am doing great.
We give thanks.
Because
yes,
you started by recalling our revolutionary ancestors.
Definitely.
And making them to be present during our discourse.
Definitely.
It is what we call the libation prayers.
Oh God.
Easy.
Definitely. Now, once again, you're most welcome to Asaase Radio.
I'm happy to be with you.
So, let's start our reasoning. If we talk about Nana Akyaaba Addai-Sebo, who are you? Where were you born? How did you grow up? How was your growing up like?
I find it extremely difficult to talk about myself.
Oh, God.
I was born in Kumasi.
Okay.
Just by the present, behind the present Bank of Ghana and the Kumasi Post Office, just opposite the museum where Yaad held the British in siege. But because of her humanity, she allowed food and nourishment to be sent to the starving, besieged whites. Well, that's another history.
Definitely.
Altogether.
Definitely.
So I was born there. And I grew up in Abuabo, near Asaase. I went to primary school there. And I had a very good, simple life because my parents were, my mother was a petty trader, and my father started as what we call it, I've forgotten. He worked at the treasury as a messenger. Yeah, as a messenger. And later on went into private business in Mali. So I grew up in surroundings that was very multinational.
Okay.
What I mean is that I grew up in a neighborhood where all people across West Africa lived in that neighborhood. The Yorubas, the Moses, the Kokombas, the Hausas, the Krobos, Fantis, everybody lived there. So even I spent some time attending Makaranta.
Okay.
You see, so and I was called Mosi.
Yeah.
So I grew up in that ambience.
Okay.
And also I grew up in the period of the liberation struggle to free Ghana from British colonialism. And all these informed my life. And I pay tribute to the Nkrumah generation who created the conditions for me to be what I am today. Because they made it possible for me, growing up in Abuabo, to be able to pass the common entrance and get to Adisado College. And when you finish, you have a job, you have a house, you have a car, so that is what that generation did for us.
Wow. In which year was that?
That you're talking about the late 1950s and the 1960s. until he was overthrown, or until the seizure of power, the capture of state from him. That's what he said. He said that what happened in 1966 was not a coup d'etat, but it was state capture. Yes, we don't call it coup, we call it state capture. So I grew up in that ambience. And I was lucky also to have grown up and be in the hands of some of the greatest minds in science, in history, in politics, anthropology, social sciences of the 20th century. And they have informed me and made me who I am, and I pay eternal gratitude to them. Like C.L.R. James, who was a person who taught Nkrumah the politics of organization, and who introduced Nkrumah to George Padmore. That began the greatest ever political collaboration in the world. George Padmore was such a brilliant force that prior to independence, the British banned his books from being circulated in Gold Coast. That was what George Padmore meant to the British colonial government. So they have molded me. And I sit here and I'm able to talk and respond to questions because of how they educated me.
Okay. All right. We give thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Nana Akyaaba Addai-Sebo, in the studio.
Sing Asaase Radio.
And this is Asaase Radio. Exactly 10 minutes gone into the hour too. And listen, we've taken off already and we're about to get deeper. So in terms of you growing up in Abuabo, schooling over there, getting the admission to Adisadel and all that, I would like to know, you said your mom was, was a trader and all that. What about your dad? How was your raising up like? Were you Christian? Were you going to church? If you were going to church, which church were you going around, attending around that time?
I was very fortunate to have had parents who I do not ever recall telling me to go to church, telling me to go and worship this or that. With the Akan, if you are a traditional Akan, we say that no one instructs a child about God. You are an incarnation of God. You are a child of God. So it is what at your birth, when you are being named, then they will touch your lips or tongue with something bitter and something sweet, saying that let your yea be yea and your no be no. Let the truth be your guide, your guiding principle. So I was not brought up a Christian.
Okay.
And I don't recall, but my father was a Catholic.
I see.
But he never, ever sought to indoctrinate us, or I don't recall it, and neither my mom.
Wow. I see. So you growing up and your dad being a Catholic, you understand me, and all that, and you around that time he didn't instruct you to go to church or anything. Wow. So you were given like a free will, do whatever you like. Wow.
And I've been very free-spirited and very independent-minded. Very, very, very independent-minded. Very independent, and I'm not afraid to question.
I see. So are you an African traditionalist? Do you pour libation?
All that I know is that I'm African.
You're an African.
And I'm proud to be African. An African who happened to be born in Ghana. I could have been born in Nigeria or Zimbabwe. So I'm an African first.
Wow.
And I have had the privilege of understanding who I am as an African. And there's no greater sense of liberation than knowing who you are, and particularly as an African, and the role that you have played in the development and growth of world civilization from antiquity to the present.
All right. Let's move on, Nana. How was the movement like, from Ghana, to the UK before the whole Black History, movement started with you?
Oh, I had hoped that maybe we wouldn't go into that. But I fell into what I'll call dissonance with the Rawlings regime in mid the last quarter of 1983, and I believe I had touched on an area that has become a source of concern now in the country, the whole issue of gold. I did a lot of research, and I got Christian Agri, who was then the editor of the Ghanaian Times, to agree to publish a series of articles entitled Ghana's Gold, The Revolution Sinks or Swim By It. And my argument was that gold is all over Ghana. And by 1983, we were facing a lot of difficulties because of the bushfires across the country, and also the dispatch of Ghanaians from Nigeria. The economy could not contain. Things were difficult. So I said that let's declare gold as a strategic mineral. And be bold also to denominate our currency and everything in gold. That gold should be our heritage, and we have to seize control of gold. And not a single gold should be exported from the country raw. And this generated a lot of interest with the defense committees, workers' defense committees, particularly the Mine Workers Union and those at the mines in Takwa and Obuasi and Prisia and other places. And it generated a lot of concern to the extent that the Secretary for Mines at that time, the name will come to me, was under pressure. And it got to a point when some of the defense committees came to me and said that, look, there's so much tension in the country now, so better get out for a while. So I decided to go out. So I left, and then I left in November and came back on the 3rd of January, 1984. Then early morning, about 3 a.m., where I was living not far from here, was surrounded by soldiers. But in short, it was surrounded by the death squad, led by Jack Bebley.
Mm-hmm.
And they were to take me, I don't know, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But to cut matters short, I managed to escape their detection with the help of my colleagues, Kofi Ashiboye-Mensah and Tony Kofi, who saved my life. And then Ashiboye-Mensah rushed to Kojo Chikata.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as Kojo Chikata saw him, according to Ashiboye, Kojo said, "What do you want? Did they do anything to you? They didn't do anything to you. What do you want? Go back." So it was me that they were after.
Yeah.
So I was declared a wanted man.
Wow.
A police notice was published and I was declared a wanted man. So for about 3 weeks or so, I was playing hide and seek with the security agencies and all that across them. But the People's Defense Committees and workers, they were hiding me from place to place, and they finally managed to organize.
In Kumasi or in Accra?
Across the country. They were hiding me from place to place.
Wow.
Yes. And they managed to organize my escape, a boat along the Ivory Coast border, and they organized at the other side of the border in Ivory Coast, and they did tremendously well.
Wow.
Yeah, so
they were hiding you from place to place.
yes, I have been declared a wanted man, and a police notice had been published, and there was radio, television announcement that all the borders, everywhere they should be looking for me, and all that. Every day there was an announcement and all that.
In 1984?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got to the UK.
So what happened when you got to Ivory Coast?
Oh, when I got to Ivory Coast, I stayed there for about a week to organize my way out. I was deciding whether to go back to the US or go to the UK. I decided to go to the UK because my godfather had moved to the UK. That's CLR James.
Okay.
He had moved to the UK in London.
Okay.
And I also felt that the Ghanaian community was stronger and vibrant in London, and it was closer than the US.
Okay.
So I should go to the UK. So that's why I decided to go to the UK.
So you stayed in Ivory Coast for 1 week?
Yes.
To prepare yourself,
organize myself and all that, and to get a ticket and everything, my money to be able to live. So I entered as a refugee.
Wow.
Yes, I entered as a refugee in February 1984.
Wow.
Amazing. Sing Asaase Radio, the voice of our land.
Gold. I touched on it around there because what I did also in those pieces was that I tried to explain the link between intelligence and minerals and how the CIA came about, how the MI6 and the Israeli intelligence, all of them, how they came about. It was all through in pursuit of resources and control of resources. And then you look at Lumumba, how he was killed, and it's all over resources, over control of uranium. And it's the same thing here. And that is it. And Nkrumah principally was overthrown also because he had plans to take control of the gold and the mineral resources of the country. And also to ensure that not a single cedi or gold or dollar reserves were held in abroad. Everything should have to come home. And we were going to create our own Fort Knox. There's no need that we are land of gold, and then we don't have a gold reserve that we keep gold reserve outside. And Nkrumah was going to change all of that. And that was the basis that the British and the Americans, the Israelis, the Germans, and the Canadians and Australians, they all pulled their intelligence together and got rid of Nkrumah. But that is another topic that we may have to deal with.
Of
We
course.
are talking about Black History Month.
Definitely.
Yes, so you can invite me and we can deal with that.
Definitely.
But that's what got me into trouble.
And then you have to run away from your own country in 1984. Wow.
Yes, I was in exile for quite a long time.
Wow.
Yes, and it hurts, you know. It
Let
hurts.
me know, how is the feeling like in your own, let's say in your own country, and you are being pursued, and you don't know whether if they lay hands on you, you come back alive or dead. How is that feeling like? Like you can't come back, and you know, I don't know, but how is it like?
You know, when they were pursuing me in Accra, I spent about 3 nights in Accra. The first night I spent at the bus stop, at the police station, at the what do we call this place? Tesano police station bus stop. That's where I spent 2 nights there.
Wow.
At the bus stop. And
Were you sleeping at the bus stop?
Yes, that's where I spent the night. And the main reason also was that Kojo Chikata lived not very far from there. So I said that the closer I got to that's the last place that they would search for me.
So you want to be close to them rather than be far away from them. Oh, I see. I get a trick.
Yes.
Like the more closer you get to them, they wouldn't think that, oh, he'll be here.
Yeah.
He'll be far away.
Yes.
I get a trick.
No, but it's a terrible thing because I was so angry. I was so angry that the first thing that I did was go to the residence of Kubledu, who was then the Inspector General of Police, which is not far from here. When I went, he was not there. Then I went straight to Kwesi Bochwe's house. I met the wife, and he was not there. So I wrote a note for him to give to Rollins, Chachu Chikata, and Kojo Chikata, that I have no anger in my heart over them because I am free-minded and the burden is on them because I don't know what I have done to them. So if anything, I forgive them. That is what I wrote for Kwesi Bochwe. And there was a very interesting relationship between Kwesi Bochwe and myself. And I think it was because of that note. I was angry, but I was not bitter against my persecutors. I don't know why, but I also believed, in fact, I also believed that there was no way that they will be able to keep my physical body in jail in Ghana. And when I was leaving the U.S. to come to Ghana, I spent about 5 hours from about 9 p.m. to about 4 a.m. with Chancellor Williams, who you know was the author of The Destruction of Black Civilization, one of our ancestors, glorious ancestors. And to sum it all up, he said that the way that we have educated you, if you go back home and you say you are going back home, you are going to have problems, serious problems. And most of the problems will come from your own colleagues. Your own colleagues. So you have to be extremely careful. So I had that premonition, that warning. And so I was very careful in how I conducted myself while I was in Ghana at the time, because I came back to ground with the defense committees. I saw the value in the defense committees, the people's defense committees and the workers' defense committees. And I believed in the principles of it and its establishment. And so I grounded with them. I held no position whatsoever in the PNDC regime. The only thing that I did was to ground with the defense committees, particularly the most powerful one, the Zone 7, around Roman Ridge, Pig Farm, and all that area. And we worked very, very closely together. And they held the future for Ghana. But at the same time, I knew that they were the Achilles heel of the PNDC regime. Kojo Chikata and others really did not like the defense committees. They had no control over them as such. They were independent acting, and they posed a problem, an organizational problem for them. And that is what most people don't know. And that is the truth. And I think people like Akresi Sapon, Asaase, if they are all alive and all that, they will accept that the National Defense Committee, NDC, that was formed under, who was heading it? Mao Sedake, and all of them were part of it. It was to counter the defense committees. It was to counter the defense committees.
All right. 30 minutes gone into the hour 2 on Asaase Radio.
Easy.
And Black History Month. So we have the founder of Black History Month in the UK in the person of Nana Akyaaba Addai-Sebo. And then Junior Maestro all the way from Norway sent in this particular message, and he said, please ask him if he got the support for his views, and what did Rawlings and his crew think after things had cooled down post-revolution.
We are diverting a lot.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Black History Month.
Definitely.
Let's get back to Black History Month.
It looks like people want to know more.
You have to bring me here specifically for that.
Okay, all right.
So now let's get to Black History Month.
All right, so when you get to the UK now, how did the whole Black History Month movement started with you?
When I go to the UK, I was lucky to have been headhunted for a job at the Greater London Council as a special projects coordinator. And 1984 was a period, you see, of heightened world tension. The Russia and the US and the whole perestroika and the breaking up of the the former Soviet Union and all that and its implications on the world, and also the fight against apartheid, which was gaining strength because Zimbabwe had gained their independence in 1980, and the tension in the world, the Pan-African world, was high. So that was the atmosphere and the period. And you also had, in the person of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, running the Whitehall and the White House. And they were tremendously in support of the apartheid regime in South Africa. And we were lucky in the United Kingdom to have had London, the center of world financial capital and imperialism, to be run by radicals of the Labour Party, led by Ken Livingstone and others. And I was ushered into that period and ushered into their arms at the Greater London Council. And it was at that place where one day I went to work quite early, and I met our group secretary with her head on her desk, and she was in tears. I asked her, Elizabeth, what's the matter? And she told me that, would you believe it? Last night, as I was preparing my son, Marcus, to put him to bed, and after prayers, as I was leaving his bedside and closing the door, he called me back, Mom. So I went back to his bed, and he asked me, Mom, why can't I be white? And the mother said, I had deliberately named my son Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I'd named him after Marcus Garvey. And here is my son asking, why can't he be white? So I have failed my son. That was why she was grieving. Then I said, no, you have not failed your son. It is the institutions of state that have failed your son. The school curriculum, the educational system, the local authority and its responsibility. It's all these, that have failed your son. So it got me thinking that there is this problem of identity. So I did my research. My antennas were sharp, and I started being mindful and careful, listening to the younger ones as they closed from school, and they were on the underground trains, in buses, bus stops, school playing grounds, and listening to them. And then it dawned on me that when you try to relate them to Africa, they will shrink. They didn't want to be related to Africa. And also, particularly those from West Africa, you see their faces, you see that this person is from Senegal, this person is from Nigeria, this person is from Ghana, you see that this is a Ga, this is an Asante, this is this. You can see them, their facial features. And when you try to speak to them in the language, in a Hausa or in Twi or Ga or whatever it is, they don't want to be associated with it, and they will shrink. And they try to mimic themselves as Afro-Caribbeans. And it really woke me up. I said, there's a crisis of identity amongst our children. So something had to be done. Something had to be done to restore their sense of dignity. And I said that, well, we have to celebrate Africa and Africa's contribution to world civilization from antiquity to the present.
After all you've gone through in Ghana, running away from Ghana, going back to the UK, you want to start another thing again.
And I was very lucky because I had councillors, MPs, and others who supported me. They understood because I studied, when I go to a place, I study the laws of the country, and particularly in relation to race relations and all that. And in 1976, they had promulgated a Race Relations Act calling for local governments to organize their service delivery and provisions to create a harmonious society. A harmonious society that all races will enjoy. So there were several acts there that enjoined the local authorities to ensure that people living in their boroughs will not be discriminated against, and there should be equal opportunities for all of those in the boroughs. So it was on the strength of this that I put together proposals demanding that we celebrate the contributions of Africans and people of African descent to the growth and development of world civilization, especially the United Kingdom and Europe. And I did all the necessary justifications and showing examples that even in the 2nd century, it was an African emperor of Rome who the then governor of Rome appealed to come and protect them and save them from the savages from the north who were attacking them and making life unbearable for the British. So Septimus Severus, an African emperor of Rome, came to London, Britain, to rebuild the Hadrian Wall and protect Britain with hundreds of years of peace and tranquility. And what was remarkable about Septimus Severus, who was born, an African born in present-day Libya, while in Britain, he was provisioned, that is, his food and beverages were brought from home, from Africa. He ate African food that in the 2nd century BC. So I wanted to get the British people to understand what we have done for them and the contributions that we continue to make Britain what it is and Europe what it is today. And so we had to celebrate. So I was voted a lot of money to organize this. And coincidentally, the period 1987-88 marked the 100th anniversary of the birth of Marcus Garvey, the 150th anniversary of the emancipation of slaves in the Caribbean, and then the 25th anniversary of the founding of the Organization of African Unity. So I put all these together, and we call that we are going to celebrate the year 87-88 as African Jubilee Year.
Okay.
And we celebrated the African Jubilee year. And the person who was invited to come and launch the African Jubilee year was Mugabe.
Robert Mugabe.
But an emergency meeting of the OAU was called, summit.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't come. So he sent his wife, Sally Mugabe.
Mm-hmm.
So Sally Mugabe and Burning Spear and a whole lot of that. It was a fantastic event at the Westminster Central Hall. And I chose the Westminster Central Hall because it was where Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, Padmore, C.L.R. James, and all of them, that's where they used to meet to plan for the 1945 Pan-African Congress in Manchester.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I chose
that particular
venue.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we continue, 43 minutes going into the R2 on Asaase Radio, and exactly 2 p.m. we have to end this.
Yes.
My producer, Narubawa, he's got some questions. But before, Narubawa, before you step in, last year, that was 9th December 2022, a Ghanaian architect of UK's Black History Month, was honored by a prestigious British university. And I'm talking about Nana Akyaaba Addai-Sebo. I would like to play his acceptance speech for the whole Ghana to listen. Joseph, if you're ready, let's listen to what Nana said, at that particular, award ceremony.
Director, I have the honor to request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Literature, honoris causa, upon Akyaaba Addai-Sebo.
Sing Asaase Radio, the voice of our land. Sing Asaase Radio, the voice of our land.
By virtue of the authority invested in me, I confer the degree of Doctor of Literature honoris causa on Akyaaba Addai-Sebo.
Sing Asaase Radio, the voice of our land.
Akyaaba will now address the gathering.
This was last year, 9th
Thank
December.
you, SOAS, for honoring Africa. We are celebrating Africa today. I'm humbled to be here before you. My wife, family, friends, and I are grateful to Lord Hastings, Chair of the Board of Trustees, Zainab Badawi, President, Provost Claire Ozen, Director Professor Adam Habib, Director Laura Hammond, Kadir Emir, Chief Operating Officer, Amapoku, Librarian, and Rukia, and the student body, who have lifted me so high and placed me in the firmament of honors, where I now hang. Like a shining star, I hang up there in the sky, not on my own, but on the invisible shoulders and hands of those whose guidance and patience have brought me this far. I accept this honor in eternal tribute to them. I accept this honor in tribute to Abuabo Primary School and
Sing
Asaase College
Asaase Radio, the voice of our
in
land.
Ghana, who in the 1950s and 60s gave me this unique facility to read and write. In literal sense, it is these teachers who made me literate and instilled in me the discipline of reading, writing, and asking questions. It is this unique gift that has brought me this far. Growing up, therefore, I read every literature that came in my way. I loved the sound of what I read in my ears and heard. The words spoke to me from the pages and animated me to inquire and discover. My mother My mother loved to watch me and read. However, at about the age of 9, I asked my mother why she could not read. I held a book before her and told her to concentrate hard on the page and just read. I really wanted Mommy to read and with me. The facility to read and write must not be denied any human being, young or old. To read and write is a human right. I accept this award for our world to respond to the urgency of decolonization based on history and not on the science of human classification. Colonialism is a dehumanizing construct that has to be deconstructed in all areas of human learning and national life. This is the challenge I place before SOAS in the university. I appeal to the university to lead the way to reconstruct our common humanity. Yes, our common humanity, free from the ravages of racism. I am boiling inside me with so much anger and frustration over our world of inequality and our world of environmental degradation. But what stirs me up most is our world of racism. Racism is odious. Racism hurts, and it hurts so deep. Racism is dehumanizing, and so is its handmaiden, colonialism. Racism, the colonial construct, is dehumanizing, and so to humanize our world, we must consciously decolonize. This is the core message of Black History Month. Black History Month matters, and Black History matters, because Black history is the history of humanity. Yes, the history of our common one humanity. How can I use this award to benefit SOAS, the university, Africa, and the world? There are 3 issues that are dear to me. All involve the use of the power of global media and communication, academia, and the youth to address the trauma of racism by celebrating diversity, the urgency of decolonization by hosting an international assembly on decolonization and development, and so campaigning for the rights and needs of the world's most disadvantaged children. I invite SOAS to consider these humanizing projects. I'm disappointed with the leadership of my generation that has ruled Africa from the 1980s to the present. My generation has failed and betrayed the younger generation who risked their life to flee their countries, to cross the desert and the sea in order to reach Europe for a better life. Societies in Africa are on the verge of collapse when you find the vast majority of the youth wake up in the morning with nothing to look forward to but misery and hopelessness.
Asaase Radio.
And come to think of it, where were most of the ruling elites of my generation educated? Not here, in Europe, US, and Canada. The rule of my generation has shredded the integrity of Mother Africa. Now, you graduates, as you leave the walls of this esteemed university, I encourage you to do everything that brings honor to the university, professors, lecturers, alumni, and current students. You owe that to them in your professional, public, and private life. You have a duty of care to protect and enhance their hard-earned reputation as they have given you their shoulders to stand on in order to achieve. Never let them down. This is how I approach my professional life. I will not do anything that could bring disgrace to those who believed in me, like Chancellor Williams, C.L.R. James, Henry Clark, Amartya Edu, Lord Avery, Lord Yaad, Lord Joel Joffe, Amara Esse, Kumar Rupusinghe, and those here with me, Tony Hollinsworth, Ansel Wong, my wife, sisters, representing the family, and John O'Fay, representing my friends of literature. It is their belief in me that has sustained me through thick and thin. As you leave this friend's house with your diplomas to enjoy this memorable day with family and friends, I entreat you to go back to campus and in all your beaming smiles, express gratitude to the cleaners, administrators.
Asaase Radio. Asaase Radio. Asaase Radio.
Yes, to the cleaners, administration and maintenance staff, gardeners, electricians, cleaners, drivers, whose consistent service provided you the excellent academic environment and the ladder on which to climb to achieve. And do not forget, for it is through such acts of gratitude and endearment that true leaders are made. For you lead to humanize. Lastly, for Africa to develop in its own image and interest, Africa must decolonize. We must decolonize to humanize. We must decolonize to humanize. We must decolonize to humanize. Decolonize to humanize. Decolonize to humanize. Decolonize to, here, let me hear you. Decolonize to humanize. 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 Decolonize to humanize.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Akyaaba Addai-Sebo.
Easy.
It's unfortunate that we have like 6 minutes to go away. So now, ask your question, and then
we run out of time.
Yeah.
So my mic.
yeah, no, it's on.
Yeah, I have 2 questions, but I'm going to limit it to 1.
Yeah,
I'm going to use 2 of our great leaders as a case study, Prof, which is Marcus Garvey and W. Du Bois. Marcus Garvey was a militant, radical actionist. And this was a man that was preaching about black consciousness, black self-empowerment, black economy, feeding ourselves, be proud of who we are as black people. And he even preached about the Back to Africa movement. Now here comes W. Du Bois, intellectualist. And Du Bois was telling, while Garvey was telling black people to actually move back to Africa, he started the Blaster Line. Du Bois telling the African Americans that tone up your skin, which is bleaching, straighten up your hair, to be fit or to be accepted in society by those white people. Now look at this, what these 2 leaders stood for. Do you think Du Bois, looking at this generation right now, Du Bois' message has been accepted and Garvey failed in terms of the Back to Africa movement? Because what did I say so? Now we ask him bleaching everywhere. People are straightening up their hair. We classify women who have long hair, thick wigs, as the most beautiful ones. With the ones with natural hair, we don't really pay attention to them. So in this case, I think Garvey failed in the quest to unite black people. Let us be proud of what we eat, everything black. And Du Bois rather succeeded in his quest of toning ourselves and dyeing our hair and all of that to be accepted in society. What do you make of these 2 leaders and what they stood for?
They didn't fail. Both of them succeeded. And this is reflected by why Nkrumah brought Du Bois here. And it also reflected the relationship between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And what people also didn't know, that there was a strong camaraderie and bondship between Malcolm and King, and likewise between Garvey
And Du Bois.
So we don't have to be caught up in that. It is what they represented at that particular time and the force of their message. Whatever it is, one of the greatest classics that has been written is The Black Reconstruction by Du Bois, which still is a must book that everybody should read. And his publications, everything tells you about what Du Bois really meant. So we have to study. I will end by saying this. One of my professors that I studied at his feet, John Henrik Clark, he taught me that, look, I know you are mad and crazy about Nkrumah, but please read and study Dankwa. Read and study Dankwa. And I took his advice. And I read and studied Dankwa and studied Buzia also. You see, so what you have to realize is what Nkrumah also knew all this. But he brought Du Bois here. And we also have to understand the significance of Du Bois, Padmore, and Nkrumah having the mortal remains of these three giants of the Pan-African movement here in Accra should mean a great deal to us if we are spiritualists.
I think there's one of the great leaders who's been forgotten in the 19th century to ever work on this earth, which is Frederick Douglass. Self-taught, and he's written so many books. People actually can check this book on my pain and my struggle, my bondage and my freedom.
Yes, and it is because of Frederick Douglass, who was born in February, that Carter G. Woodson, together with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln, linked up together to start the Black Negro Week, which in 1976, President Ford proclaimed it as Black History Month. So we recognize Frederick Douglass. So when you mention one, you have mentioned all of them.
All right.
Thank you.
We have a minute to go away. Listen, seriously, we have a lot to deal with, and Achu is here, and he's going to take over with the sports and all that. Nana, I have a lot of questions, but I think we have to do this again. Seriously, we have to do this again. We need to invite you back again for us to finish this from A to Z. You understand me? You know, we just started a whole conversation, and it's time already. Before I leave you, finally, your word of advice to all Black people in 30 seconds.
Take pride in yourself and know and understand and appreciate who you are. Understand what Nkrumah meant by the African personality. Understand what Nkrumah said, that the Black man is capable of running his or her own affairs. Understand it. And you are capable because you have done that before. You have done that before. From antiquity, you've done that. You've created civilizations. And you taught the Greeks and the Romans. You taught them. Their gods came to Africa to worship you. Abraham, and his 12 tribes, where did God point them to? To come to Egypt. Look at Joseph, Aaron, Moses. It was Egypt that gave them refuge. It was Egypt that made them who they are. They were worshiping several gods, but Egypt was a monotheistic state, nation, and that is where they came and lived for over 400 years. And when they went back to their country after trying to organize a coup and it failed, and the Pharaoh let them out, and they went to Canaan, they met their people worshiping several gods. And Moses had to bring the 10 Commandments, which was copied from the 42 negative confessions that they were taught as a catechism growing up in the palace of the Pharaoh and all that. So that is us, and you have to know this. And it is the understanding of who you are that is of the greatest gift. Because when you know who you are, you praise and honor the majesty of God, because God created you in his own image.
All right. Now, I would like to say thank you so much for your time and space. My name is King Lagazi. On behalf of the production crew, Naro Bawa, Debbie Day, Junior Maestro Benedict Jaffes, Bob Africa, Joseph Amma, technician on duty. I would like to say Asante Sana. We'll be here next week to serve God and country. My name is King Lagazi. Kind of, a bit, you understand me? The African spirit and all that, but everything good in the place. Sports is up next with Achu Tamaklo, and I'm requesting this particular last song, Survivor from Bob Marley, to the general manager of Hillberry in the person of Mr. Subi, right? Yeah, man. Respect and manners to wherever you find yourself. We'll be here again to serve God and country. Trust me. Akyaaba will come back again for us to finish this whole thing. We out.